The Soul Ripper. Ripper used to live in a landed property, and one time I heard my dad let out the most drawn-out, blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life at about 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. It sounded like in a horror movie. Then, I heard footsteps shuffling up the staircase really slowly. No one was awake at the time, and as my room was directly in front of the staircase, I realized, with growing horror, that there was something in the house. And it was headed straight for my room. I did what any terrified teen would do. I hid under my blankets. I, at the time, hated sleeping with the doors closed, and for some reason, I placed a full-length mirror right in front of my bed. Then, I heard it stop right outside my door, and I just knew if I peeked out of my blankets, I'd either see it in real life or in the mirror. I don't exactly remember what happened next, but the thing didn't do anything else, and I think I just laid under the blanket scared out of my wits right until the time I usually woke up. Of course, I had to ask my dad why he was screaming in the middle of the night, and he told me this. Basically, he dreamt he saw himself on a bed, and there was black shadow or something standing over him and trying to rip his freaking soul out of his body. He was screaming both out of pain and in terror, and the only reason why he was alright was because another white light, he said it felt like my late grandmother, was there, trying to protect him from whatever demon this thing was. It didn't happen again, but until today, we still have no idea what that thing was. But that was the scariest thing I've experienced. I keep my doors closed at all times now. The unexpected goodbye. There's this belief that when someone in the family passes, their soul will linger on Earth for 7 days before they move on. My grandma passed before Chinese New Year back in 2009, so my relatives and I were waiting for her to appear, especially my dad being the youngest and closest to her. On the 7th day, my dad was away, so my mom asked me to sleep in the master bedroom with her so she wouldn't be alone. My parents usually sleep with a night light which was on and music, which hadn't been turned on yet. I was lying on my dad's side of the bed and my mom went to the kitchen to smoke. I heard snoring in the room. In my head, I was like, who is snoring so loudly? But then realization took over me. I remembered that I was the only person in the room. So I said aloud, "Grandma, if you are here, can you wait for me to sleep first before you sleep? Because I'm scared if you are really here." And quat. Then the snoring stopped. I freaked out and covered myself with a blanket to try to sleep. That night in my dreams, I got scolded by my grandma for being scared of her. But she told me that I was the easiest person for her to reach out to and that she didn't have much time before she had to go. She gave me some messages to pass to my relatives too. I woke up the next morning tearing up, but I recorded everything she said to my dad via WhatsApp and he passed the message to my relatives. Lack of personal space. This happened when I was in the army during BMT and it was my first supernatural experience ever. It was during field camp on the first night. I had finally fallen asleep at about midnight when I heard heavy breathing in my face. It sounded like someone panting heavily and it was really in my face. My eyes were closed and I thought it was my buddy, so I wanted to tell him to shut up. But when I opened my eyes, I saw my buddy asleep on the other side. I instantly froze with fear because there was nothing there. I just shut my eyes, hoping it wouldn't return, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I asked my buddy and he said he slept soundly and didn't experience anything weird. Nothing happened the next night, so I brushed the experience off as my mind playing tricks on me since I was tired from training, or it was just a nightmare. The night after that, we moved to a new location. We were tasked to dig our own graves and I was the unlucky one who was placed at the far end where I had to dig next to this huge tree. That night we had to sleep in our graves and quat. Then the same thing happened again. That heavy breathing in my face, but this time there was no tent covering me. I was out in the open and this invisible thing was just breathing heavily in my face once again. I was scared estless and could only close my eyes and pray in my head that it would go away, which it eventually did. That was my ghostly experience in Tekong during my BMT days. Company line is surprisingly clean and quat. It's just the forest area that's dirty, in my opinion. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.